Welcome back, Prairie Wings. I'm Merle, and in this video, we're going to talk about torque to yield versus torque to angle versus what bolts do we actually need to change in this LS. And if you stick around to the end, I will show you how to use a free tool that I'm going to give you. First of all, I want to get the sciencey stuff out of the way. What does torque to yield mean, or to yield mean? Well, to yield means that you have taken and stretched something enough that it is permanently yielded, which means it is deformed or it takes on deformation. So if I talk about a bolt and I measure this bolt and then I torque it up to a torque to yield measurement, when I loosen it off, this bolt is permanently longer. And if I were to use this bolt again, it would get longer again, but it is yielding farther and it will be actually deforming to a weak spot. So when they engineer bolts that are torque to yield that you throw away, they engineer that bolt that you torque it up to your first setting, which is usually a very light foot-pounds, and then you go the number of degrees you want. And that number of degrees is engineered based on the thread pitch to actually deform the bolt permanently, but have it in a spot where it has a lot of grip. Because even if it isn't a torque to yield bolt, you're actually stretching that bolt. And that brings us to the torque to angle bolts. Torque to angle bolts, they are based on the same principle as a bolt that you torque. It's just that it's engineered on this thread pitch to be tightened enough that it stretches accurately to where they want to hold it. But if we use a torque to angle bolt, it doesn't actually permanently deform. So when you take a torque to angle bolt, which is different than the torque to yield, you loosen it off, the length of the bolt is going to be exactly the same as when you before you actually started tightening it. So in this LS engine, let's discuss which bolts are the ones that we would have to replace. I'm choosing to use ARP bolts in this, and ARP, if you're listening and this video goes big, maybe send me some free bolts. No. What I'm doing is I'm using ARP bolts in this engine, and the bolts that you need to change that are torque to yield bolts, first of all, so it's not a high dollar rebuild, but there's no way that I'm going to be able to put this motor together without using new head bolts because they're garbage, as well as this harmonic balancer or crank bolt. Now, there's a lot of debate over the rod bolts. This is a factory rod bolt, and I have a set of ARP rod bolts. Now, the debate is, do you have to change the rod bolts or not? Well, technically, this is a Gen 3, and it's a later model, but I believe the earlier models would be the same. These bolts are actually torque to angle. I can't say as I've actually seen a broken rod bolt that wasn't in a pile of hamburger from a blown up LS engine. But in an LS engine, they seem to hold together good. But I still will sleep better if I change these rod bolts. And one reason why is because I am increasing the RPM range in this engine. These bolts are probably going to be fine. This motor, we are running NA right now, but I'm building it for the potential of boost. Now, why I think that these bolts should be changed is because when I am running boost at higher RPM, say at the end of a run or at the end of a big burnout or whatever, when I take my foot off that throttle, the throttle plate slams shut, and that air in the intake and through the cylinder heads and above the pistons turns now from pressure coming in to an instant stop. And when I let my foot off the throttle, it might be at 7,000 RPM. So what I have happening at the top of the engine is that piston, because we shut all that air off, is trying to be held up. It's trying to tear that piston off the rod. Well, the weak point is probably going to be the rod, and I'll show you what I mean. This engine's upside down. I don't have any rods on it at all, but I am cruising along at 7,000 RPM. This thing is turning like not the speed of light, but the speed of light. And I have a transmission attached to this and a drive shaft and a differential and the weight of the car holding this back. So when I slam that throttle blade shut, this is still turning, the pistons are hanging on to it, and the weight of the car is having a fight with the top of the piston. And the connection point is right here. These two bolts are actually the part that's pulling this apart. So I don't know if anyone's seen at the top of the track an engine fail, but a lot of the time it's because we have that much pressure. It might just be pulling the rods apart, which I've seen lots, and I'd love it if someone would tell me if they've actually seen an LS blow a rod bolt, but it would just make me sleep better if I take these factory rod bolts and throw some ARPs in here. Another really big debate is these main bolts. So on this early, like it's a Gen 3, later Gen 3 block, these bolts are torque to angle, not torque to yield. So they are not going to deform and they can definitely be reused. Now, when we're going to go and do this, I probably want to grab my digital torque wrench with the angle degree thing on it, but I don't own one. I actually have gotten away a lot of years with click take torque wrenches, and I have a lot of torque wrenches. I actually like torque wrenches. And I'd like to buy a digital one, but I don't see a real need for it yet. Now, what you can do is you can torque this all up with your normal torque wrench, and then you can use this this little gauge. I have had this for many years. The actual dial on it is kind of getting worn out, and to be honest with you, it's kind of janky. I really don't like it. So that's where I came up with a tool that is going to be in a PDF form attached to this video that you can print and use it exactly how I am going to show you. It's a piece of paper with 360 degrees marked on it. Is it perfect? No, but it's probably less janky than that tool that we used to use before there was digital torque wrenches. Now, I'm going to show you exactly how I use it, because on this engine, we have different torques on here. So the very inside ones, they go 15 foot-pounds, and they go 80 degrees. And then the outer ones here, they go 15 foot-pounds, and then they go 53 degrees. And then these other ones, we want to lube these up before we put them in. They're 18 foot-pounds, that's it. They aren't torque to angle. So what I do is I actually take and cut this out to fit the head of the bolt, and we'll go over that. Okay, what I did is I took this hole punch, and it's actually the same size as the head of the bolts. And I punched this. I used wood underneath it that had too big a grain. That's why it's all weird, but you could easily use a kid's protractor or whatever and draw it and cut it out with the scissors. And then the angles that I'm not using, I just cut off. If you take a look here, I have taken a straight edge, and I went from 0 to 53 degrees and 0 to 80 degrees. And we'll just do an example on this bolt here. Hopefully you can see it well. This just fits right on here. Now I have a fairly sharp pencil, and what I want to do is I want to go straight on that line, and I'm just going to take and make 2 little ticks of exactly where that lines up. Okay, now I pull this off, set it to the side, and I am going to transfer the lines onto the block. I don't know if you can see that on camera. The next thing that I'm going to do, so the bolt's tightening in this direction, so I am going to take and highlight the edge of the bolt, try and be as centered on that as I can with a really sharp Sharpie, and I am going to draw a line on the block. Now that line is dead on. And so when I turn this, I can see this, and I'm going to want to turn it to that. I get all these marked out. This one here is marked out. This one's marked out. We'll turn the crank to get the rest marked out. And then when it comes time to torquing them, we just use the sequence and we can torque all of these bolts. Nothing saying that I am the best engine builder out there, but I have a lot of experience building, we'll call them razor blade rebuilds, as well as other engines. But I definitely know that a lot of you out there are going to have opinions on what bolts should we replace, why, and I actually invite the feedback because we all have the same kind of passion, and it would be great if we can add to the conversation of what should be done and what shouldn't. And people can filter through whatever they want, but I'm pretty confident, and I know that these engines, the way I'm building them, have lasted. So if you don't mind, definitely throw your comments in and like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it.